All right, Michael, how's it going?
Hey man, doing amazing. How about you?
Doing good. Okay, so I last two times we talked, you had questions for me, but I have one for you. I'm wondering if we were to discover that animal products are good for us, or what level of health benefit would we have to get from animal products for you to consume animal products?
It's funny because I had this question for you also, but
Oh,
phrased in reverse. Because I've heard you say in the past that um, you view it as acceptable if it's necessary for health. And so
mhm,
my question for you is going to be how, if it was a 1% like less health that came
mhm.
from eating plants only, like does that justify the eating animals? And so
Mhm.
I was going to grill you on this, but you beat me to the
Yeah,
punch. So
yes.
okay,
Before you
so
answer
you're
it, let me
asking,
let me
yeah.
specify something that Alex O'Connor did talking to Earthling Ed, and I can't get this out of my head. But if eating one fish or one piece of steak a month made you keep your height, but if stopping that and being full vegan made you lose 3 feet, so let's say you're 6 feet, you'd go down to being 3 feet tall. Would you consume one fish a month to keep that height?
Um, how would I consume one fish a month? Oh man, tough one.
I don't even think Ed was able to answer
Okay, well that's reassuring.
it.
Um, 3 feet. How much do I care about height? That's a fairly. I play sports, and yeah, that's a fairly harsh consequence to my well-being, I think.
Mhm.
Geez. It's something that I would want to research more to understand like
Mhm.
what like the to calculate the disutility of those fish and like how bad
Mhm.
it was for them to get there. But it's kind of like crank that up or down. Um, I probably would. I probably would.
Mhm.
I probably would do that. That would probably, and yeah, the way I think about this, like I would kill an animal to survive if I had if like the desert island thing, like yeah,
Mhm.
I would choose myself over like another animal to survive. I I probably wouldn't choose myself over like a million animals. Like I would probably give my life up if it meant a million animals would like instantly be saved from like the animal agriculture or something. So that's sort of a
Interesting.
combination of their life and their suffering, I guess.
Okay, well let's say it's not animal agriculture
Yeah.
and you're on an island and you could press a button. Let's say you're stranded on that island for a couple years and you could press a button and be saved, but that button would make a million animals just instantly dead. They're no suffering or
Mhm.
anything. They're just
Yeah.
wiped
No.
out.
No button.
You would not press the button. Okay,
I'd throw it in the water so I wasn't tempted.
but you would press the button on one animal or maybe 10 animals to eat them. Like
Right.
you'd kill an animal to eat it.
Yeah. Somewhere between there would be my threshold, I think.
So yeah, there's a lot of numbers in there. Um, so what I'm trying to imagine, because I guess I view animals and humans slightly differently.
Right.
Um, the reason I wouldn't kill a person to save five or whatever is because that individual, there's five individuals there. Like they each have their individualness. And so if you are going to kill a chicken, one chicken to eat it, but you could also kill a million chickens. I guess I guess to each of those million, they are just one. And
Yep.
so the action you're doing is it's kind of the same aside from that we know
I
a
disagree.
number can be bigger than another number.
I don't view it that way personally. I think it's
Okay.
worse to kill like 1,000 people than it is to kill one person.
Hmm. Um, you make a good point. I and I think you're right, but only in the sense that I don't think yeah, well, we don't need to get into the idea that humans have their will to live and whatnot. But yeah,
But I
no,
get you're saying like to that one chicken like that I ate on the desert island to survive. I did as bad a thing to that one individual that I'm saying I wouldn't do to the 1 million individuals in a similar case. That's what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's a problem for my view. I think it's just like I value the experience of a chicken. I don't value it as much as I value my life. But in the cumulative, like if you get enough chickens, like that, the value to which I value their experience and suffering and whatever we're factoring in the rights, like that would eventually supersede mine. And I think it's just, yeah, it would be it wouldn't be an enjoyable decision to take the hit for like the, at some point it's the 3 feet thing. Would I drop 3 feet to contribute to animal ag as like a normal part of my diet? I think I would take the 3 feet height hit. Right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
not
okay.
for just the one a month. I think like,
Yeah.
again, like I think somewhere in there is probably my threshold.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the point in the video that if your wife is watching, hit pause. Okay. Would you sacrifice your wife to save 1 million chickens?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that one.
Okay, so when we talked about the saving, I think it was 10 million people, you'd sacrifice yourself, you'd sacrifice your wife. With 1 million chickens, you would sacrifice yourself, but not your wife.
I think so.
Now,
1 million's probably pretty close to my threshold, by the way. Like,
okay.
I don't think I would for 100,000.
Okay, yourself. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, but if there was a chicken and a person in a burning building, you're going to save the person because the person's above.
Easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So so you value humans more than animals, but then the number does affect it. So 1 million chickens, you would not sacrifice your wife. Would you sacrifice your wife for 10 million chickens?
Yeah, if we go there.
And it's okay to not answer. It's okay to say you want to talk to your wife first.
Yeah, I mean, given my knowledge of her preferences today and like how 10 million. That's a lot.
And they would just be blinked out. We're talking no suffering.
No suffering. Oh, I see. Okay, so we're not okay. So this isn't like rescuing from animal ag. This is just like blinked out of existence.
Correct.
Oh, interesting. Oh boy. Okay. This is actually okay. This is maybe a bit different. Can you describe the process of blinking out of existence and what that looks like?
Yeah. So we would just say, I mean, imagining animals out in the wild. Animals exist there, and then when you do this, we can know that it's not affecting the ecosystem. It's not taking away prey from predators. It's just that they were alive, and just magically life is done. No feeling, no twitching, nothing.
Yeah. So in order for me to value the life of a chicken in the wild, I think I would want to know that their life was net positive.
Oh,
because otherwise I think it would be maybe even the ethical thing to blink them out of existence painlessly. Like if I could just ignite is it a better world where a million chickens exist in the wild and suffer but are left alone, or a better world where 1 million chickens are just blinked out of existence and don't suffer? I think
really quick for net one.
Do you mean I certainly wouldn't kill my wife?
Right. For net, are you referring to their entire lives?
Yes.
Okay, and here's why I don't think that's good. Because imagine a chicken lives 10 years, and imagine the first 5 years of its life, all these chickens have the greatest 5 years.
Sure.
But
Okay.
you know that the next part of their lives are gonna suck. You
Yeah,
could,
obviously that would factor in. So yeah, it would
yeah.
be
So
the
that's
remaining net expected
okay.
utility of, yeah.
And that's kind of how I view the not why I don't care about pleasure in a sense. I care if something's going to exist, I care about its pleasure, but I don't want to make it exist longer than it would have or make it exist if it wouldn't have, just to create something that can feel pleasure. So I just felt like throwing that out.
Yeah. Do you agree with me on the blinking the suffering chickens out of existence is a good thing though?
Oh, if I know they are suffering in the same sense that, like, if I find a bird with a broken wing, would I put it out of existence? Yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
But what
but
about
yeah.
if it wasn't the broken wing? What if it was just like chickens in the wild get hunted, they're scared all the time, they are probably going to starve to death, and they'll like that, just like if you factor
Mhm.
that all that stuff in of the expected kind of average life of a chicken, maybe some have a net positive life, but most have a net negative. Like,
Mhm.
would you blink them out?
No, if it's just the idea that there is some suffering and there's some pleasure, but there we happen to know it's maybe more suffering than your average human has,
Just
I would
yeah,
not.
okay.
Because
You
it's
wouldn't
hard to
blink them.
it's hard to know, because we live kind of in luxury right now, but for most of human history, especially if you go further back where we're just small tribes of humans living everywhere, everything's about survival, not trying to not get eaten by things. And I wouldn't blink things out that have this want and this goal. But that's kind of why I bring up that idea of them even knowing or caring about their future. If I knew that these chickens would have like 95% horrible suffering, but 5% good moments, it would matter to me if they cared about that good moment. If they were thinking about tomorrow, 5% of this is going to be good, I'd be like, maybe we'll let them be. But if they don't, if they have no thought about it, I think 95% suffering is pretty damn bad. But
Yeah, and I mean
I'll accept 95 on myself.
that can be definitional though, just how we define the positive negative utility balance. And so I'm saying if you
Mm-hmm.
factor all those things in, maybe you value positive utility like exponentially more than you disvalue negative utility or whatever. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like if the 5% good experiences versus 95% bad experiences, I think that would just by definition, if you would value the 5% one, or sorry, if you would value that as a good life, it would just, that life would be a net positive utility. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just definitionally like,
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, so here, let me give you a new example then. Let's
okay,
say we have 10 million chickens, because we bumped it up to 10, but then we were worried about the suffering. So you got 10 million chickens in the most well-designed sanctuary where they're protected from anything of where they can suffer, but the sanctuary is so well done, they don't even know they're even any kind of trapped, but they have tons of acres, like way more land than they could even imagine. And somehow all the most perfect food, the most pleasureful,
right.
they all, none of them have to lay eggs anymore. There's no, unless that brings them pleasure. If roosters bring them pleasure, we'll give them all the roosters they want. They can have 5 a night. The most pleasure possible, no suffering. 10 million. Do you take out your
Mhm.
wife? And your wife doesn't have
Yeah,
to suffer for taking her out. You just hit a button
yeah,
and
yeah.
she's blipped.
It's interesting. I like every time I thought of this in the past, it's always been like the one side of the ledger has been the like kill the human, myself or my wife or whatever, and the other side has been sort of save animals or humans from some bad outcome. So like
Mhm.
now we're looking at a scenario where we are, and that's where I would some threshold of animals would supersede like the human thing. It's like enough suffering, and yeah, I would kill myself to stop that suffering or that bad life. But we're just
Mhm.
talking about like the positive now. So you're saying there's a 10 million chickens living a great life, great positive utility life, and
Mhm.
then my wife also living the life she's living, which presumably is net positive utility.
Mhm.
um what would I do, or what do I think is the moral, or like I guess my
Both.
moral system is based on around my preferences anyway, so it's kind of the same answer. Might have to think on this one.
Okay.
yeah, like it's an easy answer if it's saving that number from suffering.
Okay.
But it's, yeah, to allow
Well, okay,
them
so let's
positive
imagine it's the opposite
experiences.
then.
Oh
So you
no.
got the 10 million in this area. They're
Yeah.
all suffering greatly. You can keep
Yes.
your wife alive and blip the chickens out of existence that are suffering, or blip her out and it makes them not blipped out, but their suffering all ends.
Wait, sorry, say the two. So in one, my wife
So
is alive and they're blipped out. And
yeah,
what's the other one?
so your wife's over here, you got 10 million chickens over here. All 10 are just suffering, horrible
Yeah,
suffering.
yeah.
If you want to keep your wife alive, you can, and you could just hit a button that blip out the suffering ones. The
That
10
all sounds
million,
great so far. So
the 10
I'm
millions are
leaning
just
towards this option. What's
blipped
the other
out.
option?
But if you're wanting to save them from the suffering and let them
Oh,
continue to have pleasure, then you have to blip your wife out. Their suffering ends, and now they're going to have the greatest lives and live on the sanctuary, having the great lives.
gotcha. So I'm choosing between um blipped out chickens and my wife living, or great life chickens and my wife blipped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is I'm not quite sure on the how much I factor in the positive. My gut is leaning I would not blip my wife for that. But I'd want to think through that more. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sort of, I think, with you in that I'm more concerned with like the suffering side than I am. It's not a straight up utility calculation. I put a much greater emphasis on protecting against suffering than I do
Okay.
on allowing kind of positive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, me
I'm
too.
gonna answer that right now. Is like I would not blip my wife for the
Okay.
to turn the chickens from blipped out to positive lives.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the last question on it. And anybody that's about to hear his answer, don't judge him too harshly because we're just thinking about this in the moment. Okay. So we got the 10 million, they're suffering, and your only option is to let them keep suffering and then they'll die whenever they naturally die. It's not like an endless in the Christian hell suffering for eternity. They're just suffering now and then they'll die when they die. Or you blip your wife out to either to end their suffering in any way,
Yeah.
whether you keep them alive or not.
Yeah, in this case, there would be some threshold of how much suffering and how much longer is it going to go on for, and how many chickens and all that. And then also on the other side, factoring in like my wife's value of her life. If she's like 90 or something and only a few more years to live, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this one is where I am fairly certain I have a threshold that it would cross it. And so the number you said was 10 million, and it's just like chickens average of the way through their life kind of
Yep.
thing. And
your wife's
how
not
bad
90.
Is the suffering?
um,
How do you know
that? I wouldn't judge. I guess let's just say that it's the most suffering that chickens
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they suffer, but
and I'm
yeah.
blipping her, or she's suffering?
Nope. Blipping. Definitely blipping.
Yeah, I would blip her.
Okay, now what if it turns out that there is life on Mars and these 10 million chickens are there? Does that change
What do you
anything
mean?
for you? Does it matter? No, let's not say Mars. Let's just say that
Oh.
that you can't see it from video or anything, but even out of the Milky Way galaxy, there's just
No, it doesn't
there's some
change it.
chickens. Okay. I don't know why it would, but it popped into my mind like or the number in existence doesn't change it. It's just the number that are suffering that you would be able to save.
Right. If there was trillions of chickens like that existed, that wouldn't affect how much I would value those 10 million chickens. If there were only 10 million chickens, or if they were 10 million out of 10 trillion, I wouldn't change how much I value those chickens.
Yeah. And I don't think it should, but I think a lot of people do. And I think I subconsciously get to that sometimes. Like I'll go, oh, wait a minute. Like more than 50% of all living animals are rats. And I think like 25% are bats. And then the other 25% are everything
Really?
else. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I just think like there's already a handful of reasons to not like the idea of rats, and then it's 50%, so we're talking endless trillions and trillions, all the, and I just think like, but that number shouldn't matter. Like if suffering is a thing, you don't want the suffering. It has no connection to if there are more of that species.
Right. I
But
think the species thing is like, it's an externality that you can value separately. Like
mhm.
I value, like, I think that pandas are cool, and it's like, it would suck if pandas went extinct, but that doesn't mean I like morally value a panda's life more than an equally intelligent rat's. I think a rat is about as intelligent as
Mhm.
the panda, probably, or maybe even more. So yeah, and
Mhm.
assuming they have the same capacity to suffer and all that, and like assuming they live the same length of life or whatever, it's like if those things were trade equalized, I think I would value the rat equal to the panda. But the externality of the endangered species thing is sort of a separate reason that I would like personally, selfishly, like want the panda to like, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? But I don't think
Yeah.
that would, yeah.
So I made a note of extinction to have a separate conversation on that, and a note about intelligence, because I have some thoughts on those too. But I do want to bring this one because we got about 15 minutes. I want to bring it back to the health thing. So yeah, so
Right.
one fish a month to do the height thing, and that's more of an aesthetic thing anyway, it's not health. But it
Aesthetic, yeah. Quality of life though is,
quality of life and
which health
potential
is
to.
a subset of quality of life, right?
True, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because one thing you'd have to factor in is like right now, depending on if you have no like martial arts or something, or whether you do or don't, if you were in some kind of fight, you would be able to protect yourself more so than you would if you were 3 feet. And so there's a handful of aspects of why you might want to be taller. I
Mhm.
believe I've heard that the healthiest height for humans is 5 feet, though.
Really?
Yeah, as far as quality of life and just like longer living and
Hmm.
whatnot. So like the taller you get, the tallest people that have ever lived die like in their 30s because like the height is uh not great. But I can't remember what it was, some kind of scientific show. But due to my lack of memory on it, we don't have to take that.
That, I
But
mean, it
yeah.
makes sense. Like, given our skeletal structure and everything, you can't scale up. Like, when you scale up your height, it's a different proportion of like the bone strength or whatever. Like, I've seen why that, like, why mammals have sort of like an upper threshold given our like our bone structure for how big we can get without it affecting our ability to like not break our bones when we're walking and moving around and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple routes I want to go with the health element, because part of me was thinking that if it was healthy for us to eat animals, then it would be reasonable for us to do so. Similar to we're in I'm guessing you feel like it's okay for a lion to eat a zebra because that's what it has to do. So if to stay alive. So there's kind of two questions. There's if we should eat what will make us have optimal health for what we're designed to have, then is that reasonable? But also, if we were designed to eat mostly fruits and veggies, and we could get perfect health for what we're designed to be, but then we find out that if we eat this thing we're not designed to eat, it would give us even more health. So it's
Mhm.
not even just like the human health, what we've evolved to be. It would be if we did this act that we would call immoral, but it made us like
Mm.
superhuman strength. Um, is it reasonable for us to care about our health and our abilities for that level? Like like we could live, if you eat this one thing that we're not even designed to eat, we could live 20 years longer, and a
Right.
healthy 20 years, not just like 120 versus 100, but you're just
And
old,
that thing
hard to walk
is
around.
immoral, you're saying.
Immoral, yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't, I think that um it would, it wouldn't factor in any differently than like ratcheting. I don't like baseline my value of health and how that factors in on like what is evolutionarily like what has happened or where are we at now. I think that's like, yeah, it's an interesting question, like how that all factors in. Like, man, yeah, I don't know how to answer that actually.
It's right. That one's just kind of something to ponder. But like, okay, so let's say let's take a animal product like a meat that is not that is, let's say, not carcinogenic. We can just know that this meat
Fish.
can okay,
Fish
so
are like
fish.
generally considered to be pretty healthy.
Okay, so yeah, let's take fish. Let's say so if you were to eat, let's say you were just the healthiest person you could be. You eat whole food, plant-based, and you don't consume anything that's bad for you. No cigarettes, no whatever. You exercise plenty. You basically could look at a map of, aside from animal foods, everything you did made you the healthiest, strongest, and longest living you're going to be.
Okay.
And you magically know that some magical god told you all the things to do, and you somehow did it. You powered through, you do all these things. And then you can find out that eating one fish a month would make you go from your max of bench pressing 300 pounds to the only way to get to doing more, because you're doing everything you can on a non-animal diet. One fish would make you go to benching 400 pounds, and therefore it's not just to be able to have the bragging rights of benching it, that strength would go along with everything in your life.
Yeah, I think without having thought this through at all, so I'm pulling a Carson here and giving you a thinking while I'm talking answer, and like being contingent on further thinking this through. I think I would view that the same. So it's like, if I would eat a fish to save myself from a 20% reduced quality of life, I would eat a fish to give me a 20% better quality of life also. I don't know that I would necessarily like have the baseline like equate it differently on one side of the baseline versus the other. It's like I would just look at like, what is the quality of life in this situation and how much bad stuff am I causing, versus what is the quality of life in the alternative. And whether it's the negative or the positive, I don't think I view that differently. Did that answer your question? Did I?
Yeah.
So yes, I think
so that's
I would eat the one fish a month to get the 20% higher bench press and all of the better quality of life that presumably comes with that.
Would there be a cutoff though if you constantly were getting the 20%? So let's say at this point, if you have two fish, then that will give you 20% more. So it would bump you to let's just say the 500.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a cutoff. Like in the hypothetical where I can just like I can keep getting like on a linear path or whatever, that much better of a quality of life every time.
But there's a cutoff of the animal, right? Like there's a cutoff, like if the 20% going from the 300 to the 400, would you do 10 fish in a month?
Right. Yeah. There's a cutoff to the animal portion. Yes. But how I'm weighting it is I value the quality of like a 20% boost to the quality of my life at like 100 units, let's say. And I value the one fish a month at 50 units.
I see. Okay.
Right?
Yes. There we go.
So I would eat the 50 units is not as high. So I would eat the one fish, and assuming that like you continued to increase the quality of my life by that 20%, and I still value the fish lower, I think I would continue to take that deal.
Okay. And it would go until you were at something you wouldn't need to pass. So you'd become like a Superman of sorts.
Yeah. I think so.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I want to think about that more, but that's off the top of my head. I think that's how I would act. What about you?
No, I mean, that seems pretty reasonable. I think I would probably I'd be willing to consume more than you probably would. It's hard to imagine. Let's see. So I know in one case, like, so B12, we know that only comes from animals, and then we can make our supplements. If all of a sudden B12 supplements stopped working, and we had to eat one piece of steak a month to get B12, I would do it with what I know about B12. It's possible that I would hold off until my B12 was depleted a little bit, because we're born with B12, and I don't think youngsters need B12 for a good while. But yeah, I wouldn't, anything that could
I
damage
don't know about
my.
that. I don't think that's true. I
Oh,
don't think
really?
it's
Okay.
true. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's true.
I was thinking that it's something that you like your levels of it kind of hold steady for a good while, and you don't. Yeah, no, I don't. I guess that's probably worth looking into.
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
Maybe
Well,
we'll look that up and put it in the description. Let's
yeah,
do that.
for sure,
Just
for
yeah.
sure.
Link a
Yeah,
study.
no, I've been researching B12 a lot lately, and I feel like I know a lot more about it than I used to. It's actually a very fascinating topic, but yeah. So anything where I could know that like this would harm my health, or I could live longer. So I would say I would eat a fish a month to gain that much strength. But yeah, one that would be kind of interesting would be age. Would you view it approximately the same way, where
I think so.
if you consumed a fish and then you'd gain the years, and something like maybe even brain health, like eating this certain amount of
Yeah,
animal products
I
to
would
not get
just
dementia.
yeah, I would just look, I would put them in the same utility calculation of like, how much do I value living an extra 20 years? That's 100 units as well. So yeah, I would choose that over the 50 units I value the fish's experience or whatever. Yeah, the empirics of like working out how much I value the fish's like I don't exactly know, and I haven't done that. I'm sort of just flippantly saying. I might look into it and find out that I empathize more with the fish than I am thinking I do now, and maybe you know what I mean. I wouldn't take that deal, but that's like how I think how I would approach it is how much do I value one thing, how much do I value the other thing, and what deal would I take?
Gotcha. Okay, well, and let's compare suffering to just existence. So I don't know how to make a fish die so you can eat it in a non-suffering way, but I'm guessing their suffering is way lower than other animals. But let's say
You think? I don't know actually.
okay. Well, yeah, no, I don't know either. I just you hear things, and it makes me wonder. I really don't know, but which is why it's kind of disturbing. Imagine if when people went hunting for deer, instead of shooting them and they hopefully die instantly, you get a hook inside their mouth, and then you drag them up, and then you bash them in the head or whatever. So I guess I just I like to hope that it's less for them, but it might be the fact that I imagine non-mammals suffer less than mammals. I don't know why
I
feel
don't know.
this.
I don't think I even agree with that. I think that I value their experience less because I value like higher order processing and like the ability to like length of life, and I feel like there's more dimensions for a better quality of life when you have a more complex brain. But I don't know that from the suffering perspective that it follows that because you have a more complex brain, you would suffer more, be able to suffer more. Like almost like intuitively, it almost seems like maybe the opposite, like our position could be argued that like if you're living more instinctually and relying on your senses to evolutionarily like preserve your genes, maybe pain is even worse
Yeah.
for things like fish that have less complex
Yeah.
brains.
Okay. Well, let's just look at
I hope you're right though too.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll look into it further in case there is some information on it. But let's just okay, so let's set fish aside and say, so to gain that strength of 300, benching 300 to benching 400, let's say like would you eat a steak that came from a factory farmed cow? Because with the fish, I was imagining maybe you went fishing yourself, and well, with fish, I don't know if there's any difference between. I don't think fish are made to suffer any longer than So I guess the difference would be like maybe I would eat hunted deer meat or hunted boar meat that I knew that animal wasn't like having a life full of suffering, where if an animal is part of this industry that is made to suffer, like if I could, I don't know how much pig I would consume from a pig that at birth had its teeth chopped off and its tail chopped off
Mhm.
and it was castrated, and like I might go 300 pounds is enough to bench. I'm cool. I don't need to eat more. But gaining those years or gaining that strength, um, if taking out a wild boar and eating that, I think I would do that. So would that affect it? Would their suffering that you're essentially paying for, would that change it? And how much if it does?
I don't know. I don't know how much it would change it if I was doing it myself versus doing the factory farm. If like the experience, suffering, rights violation stuff was held constant. If you're saying it's not held constant, and I'm just sort of like as painlessly as possible, I try to go and hunt a wild boar versus contribute to the demand of factory farming system. I probably agree that it's less bad to go and hunt the boar.
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if it was the factory farmed, would you do it at all for that
Yeah, yeah.
20%? And then if it and whether
Um,
the answer is yes or no, then the question would be if it's not factory farmed, would that affect how much you'd be willing to eat or not?
oh yeah. Yes, it would. It would affect it. It would go into the same calculation, and um, I would. So like, let's just say the factory farm thing is 100 units of like I don't want this, and then the hunting wild boar would probably be 30 units of I don't want this or something.
Hmm.
Um, and so of the on the other side of things, let me think. What am I doing per what's the number? So there would be a number I'm saying to which I
Hmm.
would take it. I would take the deal. What number are you proposing?
Of benching going from your
One piece
strength.
of steak, one piece of steak you said per month for
Well,
the 20%
I'm
increase.
wondering what number you would be up for doing. Like how much would you would be up for
Yeah.
consuming?
And we're talking in terms of cows killed per
Um,
lifetime, or
let's say pigs, just because we can imagine a wild pig that could be
okay.
hunted versus because I think that's a big change.
Oh man. It's really like I'm not enjoying having to think about this. I'm just gonna say.
Right? Yeah, no, I
Um
yeah.
and it's making me feel like a really shitty person.
Well, you don't have to feel
Uh
that way since you said you would sacrifice your own life for 10 million chickens. That just makes me look like a shitty person.
well, okay, let me see. So pigs, would I kill one pig in my life to be 20% happier?
Oh, you don't even have to
Um,
kill it.
or just would I contribute such that one
You could
extra
pay
pig
somebody
is
to hunt it versus paying like how much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that would necessarily change it much.
Mhm. Or I guess just so you can stop thinking about the sad part of it. But like
I'll answer. I think I probably would do a pig a lifetime for a 20% increase is probably around the threshold.
okay. Um Now, would you rather do that, or if you could just do 5 strips of bacon, but from a factory farm one, where the other meat from that factory farmed one will go out to other people, but
Hmm.
you're purchasing and consuming something
Hmm.
that puts in demand the factory farmed one.
Hmm.
Would it be better to end the life of something that wasn't made to suffer, or to consume a way less of one
Hmm.
that was made to suffer?
I would take the 5 strips of bacon in that
Interesting.
case.
What about half the pig?
Half the pig. Probably take the wild pig.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm somewhere within there, for sure. Um, okay, now, you're on this island. You said you'd kill a chicken, but let's change it to a wild boar. You'd kill the wild boar to survive. Would you kill two?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. To survive now. So this is
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Okay. So you'd only kill up to one wild boar in a lifetime if that gave you 25% increase of
20%.
well-being.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 20%.
It
Well-being.
might 25, I think, was the actual math based on the bench press numbers. But yeah,
Yeah.
I keep
Well, then
saying
it went
20%.
from
But
it
yeah.
went from 25 to 20 when I went from the 400 to the to
It's okay.
500. But it's probably best if we leave the math out.
Yeah.
But something like that. You would kill a wild
Mhm.
boar to have a 20% increase in life. But if we're not talking about increasing, we're just talking about survival.
Right.
Would you kill up
Go up quite a
to
bit.
10 wild
Yeah.
boars on an island
I think
if
so.
you knew you're going to be saved? Okay.
Similarly, so like, I think I would also kill that many humans if my life was like innocent humans. Let me think. Innocent humans. I think yeah, probably.
Oh, as long as they're not made to suffer. 10 innocent humans on an island to survive. You might get more shit about that one than sacrificing your wife for 10 million chickens. But but I also get a lot of shit for the idea of killing humans to survive. And I think I would, and I think it would just be
Keep in mind the
a
chickens
natural
was to
instinct.
prevent the suffering
The
as
suffering,
well.
that's
Like
right.
that
That's
was
right.
factoring in. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's that's fair. Oh man, I want to ask you if you would kill your wife to eat her on the island, but I'm not going to, so don't answer it.
No, I actually, you can ask me and I wouldn't. I
Okay,
would very easily give my life.
for
I
her.
value her life higher than my
Okay,
own. So that easy.
gotcha. So anybody that got past the 10 million chickens you sacrificed her for that got to hear, they probably feel a little better. So that's good. I just like it when somebody comes across a little more wild than I do. Although in a big sense you don't. It's just in this little element, we differ a bit. Yeah, it's so interesting. I definitely like breaking things down in
Oh
this
man,
way.
yeah. Like, I think when you go to these extreme hypotheticals, like it's an answer can sound crazy,
Mhm.
but I think it's good to go there because it's like you want your position to be able to be consistent regardless
Mhm.
of how crazy the hypothetical is. And it's like it can sound like there's two horrible options,
Mhm.
but it's important not to like write off hypotheticals as like, well, this is a crazy scenario that would never happen. It's important that you answer it and like apply those principles to your underlying like system of ethics such that you're
Mhm.
able to be consistent across any logically consistent hypothetical, I believe.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I don't mind answering. Like it is actually it's a bit I'm actually like this is a difficult conversation for me
Yeah.
because I am honestly like, not because it's hard to answer, but because it just because you're making me say things that I don't like that I would do.
Yeah, right. Well here, let me ask a couple more. Got a couple more minutes. So one thing that I heard Alex talk about with Ed was that it's likely that in crop
Can I say
deaths,
one thing actually
yeah,
first before?
yeah.
Yeah. So the hypothetical thing, I think it's good to question like where we stand and the underlying principles that drive how we think about ethics and morality and everything.
Mhm.
But practically speaking, most of this doesn't really come into play in the world we live in.
Mhm.
And the fact that I would choose to eat a fish for 20 a month for 20% increase to my life, I don't think that's the world we live in. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think there is a good reason in the world we live in to eat a fish a month. Like,
Mhm.
you can have these things like somebody's holding you hostage and is going to, break somebody's knee every time you choose not to eat a fish. It's like, oh, I guess I would eat a fish. Like the fact that I choose eating a fish in some confined hypothetical doesn't mean that in the world we live in, I think it's anywhere close to permissible to do that. I think
Yeah.
fish are healthy for us, but I think we can be healthy without eating fish. And I don't think that
Mhm.
given the given the fact that I think eating like, I think it's like 200 grams of fish a day gives us lower risk of many things actually. I
Mhm.
don't think that crosses the threshold to which it's acceptable to eat fish.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. No,
So I
that,
just wanted to put that disclaimer out because we were talking a lot of philosophy, and it's
yeah.
like important to come back to the
No,
reality just to establish where we stand as well.
for sure. Yeah. Um, we, yeah, which is why it was tough in our first conversation for me to say that I would be okay with that, the extremely handicapped person being taken out with all the parameters. But let's bring it back to reality. One thing I heard Alex and Ed talk about was that likely within crop deaths, there's a lot more deaths that happened with foods that are grown underground than foods grown on trees. So,
Okay.
so if you have bananas, avocados, apples, a wild amount of things growing on trees, and then you have potatoes, carrots, onions, all the things underground. The
Mhm.
underground food and how we till stuff up and prep things for growing causes a wild amount more suffering and death. So if let's say all our food came from those two options, because yeah, most nuts are in trees. Okay. So let's say we eat 50% of what you consume is tree food and 50% is underground food. Would you to me it seems like it would be reasonable to say that if we adjusted and did 60% tree food and 40% ground food, that would be a good thing to do if we are able to find the numbers and figure out there's more suffering from underground um, food. I don't really have a question for you, but I'm curious just
Mhm.
your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think like, yeah, without going into the crop death thing and too much,
Mhm.
at a high level, yes, I think that it's true that I don't focus on these issues now because there's just like some grossly horrible thing going on in animal ag that is just like supersedes all these other little kind of trivial seeming concerns so much more. So it's like that's
Mhm.
sort of what I focus on. But yeah, like let's assume we get past that and we're living in a vegan world, you know, whatever that means. And now we're looking at like, okay, yeah, half our stuff comes from trees, half comes from ground, and the trees are seem to be much worse for um, they cause a lot more animal suffering. Yeah, I think it would be, I agree with you. I think it would be good to move more away from that. Probably even like, yeah, I mean, if the only reason is because of taste, pleasure, and sort of non-material quality of life benefits, yeah, I think we should probably move entirely away from tree farming in that case.
Mhm. I think it was the other way around, where it's
Or
better for
trees are
trees.
better.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, sorry. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that's surprising,
I,
actually.
I well, I think it's because I don't know if you've ever seen ratting, where they go and they scare all the rats out from under the dirt in fields, and then the dogs like just kill them, and
Mm.
to get the fields ready. It's disturbing. But I think and moles are underground, and I don't know. Well, anyways, we'll get into the whole crop death thing. Um, I I think it's just the level of animals, wild animals, being able to access the stuff that grows out of ground versus whatever few animals would climb a tree.
That makes sense.
Um,
Okay.
I don't know if pesticides affect that differently, where if you put pesticides in a tree versus putting them on a field, deer can access those pesticides, and where the deer
Right.
wouldn't be able to get up into a tree. But I don't know all the details. But I do think it is something worth thinking about, especially if you have equivalent nutrition. Like
Yeah.
if this avocado has the same amount of, I don't know, protein and whatever as this kind of bean that grows in a bush like on the ground. Um yeah. Anyways, yeah, but that seems about time for wrapping it up. Do you have any last thoughts on how much nutrition and health affects? Well, I guess maybe one last comment you could make would be the other way around. like how much of your health would you sacrifice? So I know what you would, what life you would take to gain 20%. But if you were only losing, like if you were at your maximum, like that hypothetical we talked about, you were at the optimal of what you could do. But let's say that had to be 5% less at your optimal. I don't know if that makes any sense. Would
Yeah, I think we sort of linearly increase the quality of life in one direction, and I I at least answered, which maybe I'll change my mind on, but I answered that I would continue to eat the fish a month or whatever to continue to achieve the 20% greater quality of life going in that direction. So what if we go in the other direction? Would I continue to not eat whatever's like, how would we flip it?
Yeah,
So
I guess the only way to flip it would be to, if we had a number, if we say right now that
it needs to know
you
something on the other side of like that I wouldn't do it for, right? So if it was like,
yeah, well, let's
and we said
pretend
it was
you
a
ate
pig.
animals. Well, let's just pretend you ate animals right now, and you are at the health you know you're at. And if you were going to cut out animals right now, and how much of your current health would you let decline, or how long you would live would you let decline before you'd say, nope, I'm not going full vegan?
Right. Okay, so yeah, so world one, I'm vegan and X number of my health declines, and world two, I'm eating just the normal diet that a normal person eats. I think 100 animals a year is what I've heard. I don't know if that's how close that is to reality, but something like that. So what is X? What percent would I choose the eat animals one? Probably. So yeah, it's sort of, yeah, I'm trying to just like visualize what a percentage would look like, and that's where the height thing was a nice example to kind of like actually get my head around what that situation would look like. Like if it was living half as long, I probably would eat animals. But if it was living like 80% as long, I probably wouldn't. If it was having like the pain of I don't know, a freshly stubbed toe the rest of my life, I also would I? No, I probably wouldn't actually. I think I would choose the animals over the pain of a stubbed toe the rest of my life.
Would you do one fish a month to remove that stub toe? Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. Does that give some like boundaries to my?
Yeah. No, I find it very interesting, and I think I'm somewhere along the lines of where you are, and obviously it doesn't necessarily relate to real life. And the only thing that can make this relate to real life is that like the word vegan has only been around since 1952, 51. And even though a lot of things have been studied, more studies will come out. Somebody sent me a study on B12 the other day talking about how we think we're getting it from the supplements, but we're not, and all this stuff. So over the years, maybe not even in our lifetime, but maybe some in our lifetime, we will see more and more studies happen. So the only way any of this will affect anything is if there are enough studies that convince us, like, I'm not for eating animals, I'm not for making them suffer, but I've seen enough data that I will consume this minimal amount for this thing. And
it's
so that's
preparing
why
yourself for that possible world where enough research comes out that I think is against the consensus of research today, which says that you can be equally healthy. Like I look at the Adventist 2 study, for example, where like the pescatarian and the vegan populations in that study had the best health outcomes of any of the groups. And so it's so yeah, I think eating a vegan diet is like perfectly like equally good to pretty much any other diet you can have. Obviously there's worse versions of a vegan diet, better versions and everything, but you're saying like in the world where like let's say we realize something like 4th generation vegans are like produce children that have worse quality lives or something, and that data wasn't available. Now it's thinking through, if that happened, how much of a health like what's the word, disadvantage would we be willing to accept for that animal ag kind of disutility situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good to think about. I don't think it is like, I agree with you. It's good to think about, and I think we're kind of on the same page with where we stand on it.
Yeah. Well, and
But
I don't
I
even
don't think
think
we're
it
in that world.
yeah, no, I don't think we are either. I guess we'll find out more so now that, like, so I have a 6-year-old and she's been vegan her whole life and she's
That's
perfectly
cool.
healthy. And there's plenty, like Nehemiah Delgado, that the weightlifter guy. He's been vegan his whole life. But there's going to be a whole new generation of people that are vegan from the start. And hopefully there'll be enough super healthy ones eating really well, so the studies will show things the best they can. But you know, there might be some interesting things we find out. But I think we're going to realize that we're at very least something like chimps. I don't know if you know much about chimps, but they eat about 75% figs, but they also eat other fruit. But it's awesome because I happen to love figs. But like 75% of what they consume is fruit, mostly figs, and then the rest of it is mostly nuts and seeds, and then they do some greens if they can find something similar to like a leafy green. And then like 4% of their diet is like insects. They'll put a stick in like inside of something and pull it out, and there's termites, and they'll eat it off. It's kind of gross, but and so anyways, I think we're probably something like that, to where the little amount of some kind of animal product, like insects like that, or sometimes they'll eat some other small animals, might have some benefits for us that we're intelligent enough to create a supplement version for. And so we're probably completely fine. I'm not worried in any way. But even if we needed to, if it was healthy for us and very, very strongly healthy for us to eat one fish a month, I would think that somebody choosing to do that for their health, they're still a vegan. They're eating that fish, they are improving their health, and they are having this moral philosophy of, I am going to cause the least amount of suffering and force to non-human animals. And it's a bummer that most people that go from vegan to not vegan go crazy and they'll do carnivore and all this stuff. But I like to view somebody like Alex O'Connor as a person out there eating like one fish a month. I don't know how much he's eating, but assuming that he didn't completely throw out all of his ethics, I'm guessing he's a person that doesn't want to contribute at all to animal suffering, aside from if he truly feels like a couple things here and there. So I view him as a vegan. If I talk to him, I'd be, Alex, you are a vegan, unless you tell me something wild and crazy right now, like you eat dairy ice cream or something.
Sure. Do you think though that like, did he have an obligation to explain to his audience the steps he took to ensure that that was the only course that would allow him to achieve the health and lifestyle outcomes that he wanted to get?
I personally don't think people have obligations in that way. A lot of people will say that if you have a big platform and a lot of people are looking up to you, that you'll have this big impact, so you like have this obligation. I don't view things like that. And I also don't like to imagine what it's like to live in somebody else's shoes. Like for me, I have some spare time to do stuff like this, and then I'm raising my family, and but there's probably a billion good acts I can do, or things I can look into, to where I wouldn't purchase certain types of clothes because which factories make them. And slowly but surely I'll work towards each of these good things. But I don't think with how complicated life is, each individual has specific obligations. They can just be called out on little things they do and have conversations with people, and somebody can go, hey, in case you didn't know, you could drink that without a straw. You don't need to be wasting that plastic. And then conversations will go where they go. But if Alex is not wanting to put every second of his life into doing a week testing of, if I consume this food, how do I feel? And then next week I'll do this, and strong elimination diets and all these, spending all his time talking to various different nutritionists. Yeah, I don't know what.
I agree about spending all his time. But I think that my view is that he had an obligation to at least try something, whether that's like talking to a few specialists, like
Do you not think he did at all?
supplementing. I think if he did, he would have shared it. And that would have
Okay.
like gone a long way for me to get on his side about the whole thing. But
I think he didn't want to look like he was trying to make us feel bad for him. So I think that's why his video response was something like, this didn't work for me. I'm eating a little bit of stuff, but I'm not making a claim that you can't be healthy on it. You can be healthy on it. I think my guess is that if he would have said something like, I've talked to a few people and it didn't work, even they couldn't, then he would look like he's looking for sympathy. And I could imagine that not being a desirable look. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like his community post, he said that something like, I'm unconvinced of the efficacy of an individual boycott against animal ag, something like that, which
That was weird.
sort of like,
yeah.
To me, it's like he sort of, I think he had some problems in his life that were created, some social problems, some convenience problems, probably some health issues as well. It didn't, to me, seem to be correlated with his vegan diet at all. Like I didn't understand how that kind of even.
Yeah,
I think the one thing he said was like, if I'm going to eat anything, I want it to be as nutrient dense as possible. Like that was the only thing I could see that sort of tied the veganism thing to the IBS, like lifestyle problems.
Yeah, I don't fully know how IBS works, but I could imagine that if he consumes certain
this is where
foods,
we all shill for Huel.
Yeah, right. That's funny. But I don't know exactly how IBS works, and I've heard all the various different things, but yeah, if you consume certain foods and then you have issues, and then you consume other foods and you have certain issues, but then you notice that your issues are a lot less bad on, say, something like fish, that I don't know what I would do. It's kind of like the stub toe thing, eating a fish a month to not feel the stub toe. Would you eat a fish a day to not have to be near a bathroom every second? I really don't know. It's complicated. So
it's like, if he wants to have the minimum impact on animal ag and factory farming, as he says, that's also a weird thing that he focused on the factory farming thing, to me at least. But if he wanted to have that minimum impact on it, you'd think that, like, if he's so vague about like, yeah, well, I had these health things, and so I just realized that for me, I needed to eat meat again. It's like, to me, like the outcome from that is people are going to see some health outcome in their life, try meat, feel a little bit better. Maybe like some of them will, for maybe related reasons, maybe unrelated reasons in some cases, maybe placebo, like, but it's going to just like, well, if it worked for Alex, like maybe I'm one of the people that needs to have that. And they're not going to, like, whereas if he said like, look, I did this as a last resort. I literally can't spend all my life doing this, but here's the steps I took. And if you're in this similar situation to me, I'd recommend you take these steps as well. Like, talk to these people, try to figure out, like, this is what I did, and I'm still looking for this answer, and I'm I don't know, just
no, it's
somewhere between like dedicating the rest of your life to finding the solution and like nothing. I think there's
like having a disclaimer for sure.
I feel like he should have like said what he tried, if he's gonna make this whole thing public about the health causing him to move away from veganism. I think he had an obligation to share the steps that he took.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to put on other people. Like, what if right now somebody goes out and sacrifices their wife to save 10 million chickens? Like, if we don't explain the precaution they should take, no, but yeah, I don't know what level he owes. I'm curious to see what the next thing that comes up about veganism is. Like, the next time he's like interviewed or talked to, like if he talks to Rationality Rules, Stephen Woodward, Um, if he like questions his ethics on it, because I'm guessing it hasn't changed much. But yeah, so I don't know what the exact answer is, but I am working toward what I think veganism should change to, and it probably never will, which is a focus on the philosophy of it, to where even people that are far from dietarily vegan refer to themselves as vegans. Because I think we need to I think we need a push of acceptance, as far as accepting people to share their care. I think we need meat eaters to be able to talk about how much they care about animal suffering, where now they aren't. Like they're kind of like, go vegan or you're one of these guys.
Right.
Where I know a handful of people that tell me, like, over time I've convinced them that morally they agree with me completely on veganism, but because they grew up with it, they're going to keep doing it, whatever. But there's something kind of magical about knowing that. And some of them will say, I wish a law changed making it so I can't eat meat, because I can't help it. I'm addicted to it. I will do it because I'm so used to it. But if it was taken away from me, or if I had to kill an animal to get the meat there, I wouldn't do it. And getting people to haven't thought about that to get to that level, imagine if wild amounts of people did. So
That's honestly like what did it for me, is I started just thinking I'm never going to go vegan. I started just thinking about the animal that I was eating instead of thinking of it as food. I thought about the animal, and just over time that started to shift my mindset. And it's like, would the best thing have been and then the name the trait was sort of the thing that pushed me over the edge when I couldn't answer it properly. But yeah, I just think, like, if there was somebody saying like, well, like, look at this factory farm slaughterhouse footage, and like, it's not acceptable to to contribute to the demand for this, and like, would that have moved the needle with me? I have no idea. Like, it was kind of people saying like, I watched this documentary and I learned a lot, and so I sort of did my own research, came to the conclusion myself. So yeah, I agree with you that there might be value in that approach of like bringing people to the same side of the table around an issue and moving it from there. I think we need also just, I don't mind that we have people that are advocating for the zero tolerance, like, rights protection of animals too. I think that both can further the cause of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, for sure. Cool, man. Well, I better let you go. I've kept you a while, but it was a good talk.
Great.
And yeah, let's do it again soon.
Okay, man. Have a
All
good
right.
weekend. See ya.
Take care.